A recent report by a team of independent experts commissioned by the United Nations concluded that some 30% of Palestinians killed between October of 2023 and October of 2025 were children. The report accuses Israel of deliberately shooting children in Gaza and said the toll the conflict has taken on children amounts to war crimes. Israel has strongly denied all the accusations and called the report a sham. DW's Tania Krämer filed this following report about a family in Gaza who are grieving for their young daughter.
Killed in front of her classmates. 9-year-old Ritaj was shot in a makeshift school in northern Gaza. Her parents say she was hit by an Israeli bullet, as do witnesses at the school, health officials, and NGOs.
She woke up every day, got ready, took her bag and went to school. Less than an hour had passed when we received the news. When the bullet hit her mouth, Ritaj was writing her homework. Within a few minutes, she died.
A few clothes and photos on her mother's mobile are all that's left of Ritaj's short life. Her name has joined the long list of Palestinian children who've been killed in Gaza since 2023, including during the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. A team of independent experts commissioned by the UN concluded that children are not just collateral damage, but targets. Allegations Israel strongly denies.
Based on all the evidence gathered, the report makes legal findings and concludes that the Israeli authorities and the Israeli security forces have deliberately targeted and killed Palestinian children and destroyed their childhood. The report released today further substantiates our finding on genocide.
The precise circumstances of Ritaj's killing in April are unclear, and there is no suggestion that she was individually targeted. What we do know is where it happened. Ritaj's father takes our cameraman to the makeshift school where she was killed.
This is where she was killed.
The school is not far from the so-called Yellow Line, a demarcation that's controlled by the Israeli military. That line frequently shifts, rendering the vicinity unpredictable and dangerous. Every day, residents report shootings by Israeli forces. Israeli-backed Palestinian militias are also reportedly operating there. According to the UN Office for Human Rights in Palestine, 32 boys and 11 girls were killed near the Yellow Line in Israeli attacks since the ceasefire announcement in October through early April.
It's not known from which direction the bullet came from.
We gave the Israel Defense Forces the date and coordinates of the incident. This is what they said. Based on the details provided, we cannot determine whether there was a strike or not. In total, more than 20,000 children have been killed since Israel launched its war on Gaza after the Hamas terror attacks in 2023, according to the Gazan Health Ministry. The latest report by the UN Independent Commission says children are having to endure the impact of mass displacement, physical injuries, trauma, starvation, and the collapse of health and education systems.
There can be no doubt in anyone who reads today's report that every international legal norm has been violated by the actions of the Israeli authorities towards Palestinian children, and they need to be held accountable.
The Commission also criticized Hamas, designated as a terrorist organization by many countries, for committing grave abuses against Palestinians, including torture and unlawful killings. And it highlighted the devastating impact of Israel's military strategy on children's ability to get an education.
There has been a systematic disruption by Israel of the children's ability to learn, thereby sabotaging the intellectual and social foundations of the Palestinian society.
Only recently, some children enrolled in educational programs, which offer a few hours of learning each week. Ritaj did too.
When I heard that schools, or rather a learning space, had opened, I didn't want to let her go. I knew it would be dangerous going there. But then she told me, "Mum, I want to go with my cousins." I said, "No, Ritaj, your cousin can teach you here, under our watch." She said no, she insisted on going to school. So I said, "Fine, go."
Ritaj filled our entire world. I swear to God, she loved studying very much. Our only hope in life was for her to learn.
Israel's foreign ministry has rejected the allegation that it is targeting children, as well as all other findings in the report by UN-commissioned experts, also known as the COI. In a statement, the ministry said, "Every child deserves protection and a future free from terrorist incitement and martyrdom training camps." Yet the COI's latest report is a propaganda piece as outrageous as its previous ones. The COI is a fundamentally flawed mechanism whose very purpose is to single out and vilify Israel rather than seek the truth. Israel utterly rejects this latest libelous sham, as well as all of the COI's other defamatory reports.
I want to welcome Alexandra Saieh now. She's the head of Humanitarian Policy and Advocacy at Save the Children International and joins us from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Alexandra. Paint a picture for us. What does the reality for children in Gaza look like today beyond the statistics?
Thank you so much for having me. Well, the tragic thing is that Ragad's story is emblematic of the experience of Palestinian children. We spoke to a child recently who's close to Ragad's age. She was 14, who told us, "We could die at any moment. I hope the war stops." So children in Gaza are still scared for their lives. They fear their safety and security. They've lost any sort of sense of safety and security. And all they want is for the war to stop and to be able to return to a sense of normalcy. And I think it's important to note how Israel's actions is going to affect future generations of Palestinian children. Beyond the fact that 21,000 children have been killed, and this is an underestimate. We know that there are so many children whose bodies are buried under the rubble. But beyond that, children have experienced malnutrition. They've lost now nearly 3 years of schooling. Many children have lost everything. Tens of thousands of children have actually lost one or both of their parents, and tens of thousands of children more have sustained life-altering injuries due to the use of explosive weapons inside Gaza. We're talking about children who have lost their limbs, children who have lost their sight, who have lost their hearing. This is going to impact Palestinian children and future generations of Palestinians for generations to come.
Yeah. What does that do to a child? What are the long-term consequences of experiencing a protracted conflict like this?
I mean, it's absolutely devastating for a child. It completely turns their worlds upside down. And it's, there are not many situations like what we're seeing for Palestinian children in Gaza. The immense psychological toll that this has taken on children. One caregiver told us that this was similar to complete psychological devastation. Children have told us that they want to go to heaven to be with their parents, or where they could have access to food and schooling. I mean, this is emblematic of what Palestinian children are experiencing. This is what we're seeing every day. We run temporary learning sites across Gaza, and these are places where children can express themselves, gain a sense of safety and normalcy. But what children are expressing is a complete nightmare. It's a horrific, devastating situation. And this report, the Commission of Inquiry that they released on Palestinian children, this is only the second report they've ever released on children. And what we're hoping is that this is some sort of turning point for accountability for crimes against children, because every day still we are seeing children killed in Gaza. Just in this ceasefire period alone, more than 275 children have been killed. That's not a ceasefire. This is a horrific situation, and it has not gotten better for Palestinian children.
not being able to keep their children safe, I want to look at the role of the parents here. That must be incredibly difficult for them. From what you're hearing, from what your teams on the ground are being able to document, what's the burden they carry under these circumstances?
Parents are suffering as well. They tell us that they can't provide for their children, that even though there is some commercial goods and assistance entering Gaza, that they still don't have access to food because they can't afford to buy it in the market. Remember, nearly 3 years of this means that caregivers and parents have lost their savings. They've lost their homes. They've had to move several times, fleeing bombardment. And this means that children aren't able to care for their children. Parents aren't able to care for their children in the way that they want to. Parents are sheltering in tents with their children. They're comforting their children, but there appears to be no end in sight.
Now, we've seen since the ceasefire many other conflicts emerge around the globe. Is there a fear that with Gaza disappearing from the headlines somewhat, the plight of children there will become less of a priority?
We can't let it drop from the headlines, and we can't let it become less of a priority, because even though we're not seeing Gaza in the headlines as much as before, it's still a humanitarian catastrophe. We still haven't seen significant recovery or reconstruction. Children don't have access to water. They don't have access to adequate food. They haven't gone to school, back to school. There's still, and in addition to that, families are being squeezed into smaller and smaller areas that are becoming, once again, uninhabitable. So we need to see the international community step up, demand accountability, ensure that this ceasefire actually turns into a sustained and definitive ceasefire where the guns really are truly silenced, but that just hasn't happened yet. So we still need to see meaningful action from member states and the wider humanitarian community.
Is there anything that gives you hope when you look at the situation of children in Gaza today?
Well, children in Gaza still want to go back to school. They want to have a prosperous future. And I think that's what gives me hope. They tell us every day, we want to go back to school. We want to learn. We want to have careers, and we want to be treated like other children around the world. But we really need member states to act. This includes stopping the transfer of weapons that is continuing to keep this situation at status quo, more humanitarian assistance, opening of the crossing points to allow unimpeded aid, and ultimately we need accountability.
Alexandra Saieh of Save the Children International, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.